Welcome to Brutally Honest with Jasmine Brand. I am super excited today. I have with me fashion icon, lifestyle icon, entrepreneur, author, overall hustler, Dapper Dan. Thank you for coming on the show.
Wow, I like that introduction. Thank you for having me. You covered a lot of stuff.
I feel like I wanted to make sure I had to add hustler in there. Entrepreneur overall, you are a fashion icon and you are kind of like a lifestyle icon.
Yeah.
I want to start from the beginning. I want to talk about your roots from Harlem, and I want to ask you really how your parents, I know they're instrumental. I read your book. I've watched a lot of your interviews. I know your parents were super instrumental, and they were not from Harlem, but you ended up in Harlem. Can you talk about that?
When I talk about my parents and my roots, first I'd like to say something, right? And that is what I used to hear as a young man. And part of my development, if you read the book of me becoming a Saul, and I'll explain what a Saul is later. Mm-hmm. But anyway, there was a saying, we came by dog, but we going back by bird. What does that mean to you?
We came by dog. Does that have something to do with like slavery or?
No, I'm gonna make it easy for you.
Okay.
So
we came by dog.
We used to like all the older guys and the old black people who made that great migration.
Okay.
You know, the strongest of them that stayed here, the hustlers, the ones that I learned the street from. Okay. We came by dog, meaning they came by Greyhound.
Oh, Greyhound. Okay.
Yeah, they say we going by bird. We going back by bird.
Plane.
Meaning they going back for airplane.
Okay.
So that's a big thing.
Okay.
You know? That's a big saying. You know what I mean? It's like you hear all of them say the strong ones say. So now talking about, you know, my parents are part of the Great Migration. I'm first generation of the Great Migration that come from the South, right? Mm-hmm. And I often reflect on that for strength. Okay. The older I got, the more I started reflecting on that, right? Because when I look at my parents, right, you got to understand that my father was born in 1898. So that's 33 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. And so my father's father was born a slave and then had my father, you know?
Yes.
So the interesting thing is that my father is from Emporia, Virginia.
Okay.
And he left there in 1910. He was 12 years old.
Okay.
And I thought that unusual, but when I did my research and I found out 1910, my father 12 years old. 12 years old, that was typical. A black man became a man about 12.
Okay.
Then my generation became men like 16. We're still waiting on the next generation, this new generation to become men. You know, we consider a man when you're out on your own doing for yourself. Okay. So my father left, you know, 1910 and came here and never looked back. He never saw his family. We never saw his family.
So you never met your grandparents?
Never, neither one. And so when I asked my father, I said, Daddy, why you leave home? He said everybody was dead and his brother was taking care of him and that his brother was too good for him. And so he said he had to leave and make it on his own. And so he came, never looked back, never saw nobody else again, you know?
Okay.
In my mother's situation, her and her brother left together. They had some cousins and stuff like that.
Why did they pick Harlem? I mean, I know it was a great, I mean, I guess they already had people here.
Well, it was Harlem and Chicago was the good.
Yes.
Two major destinations. Right?
Yes.
But Harlem was the greatest destination, you know? And back then, as well as now, Harlem had the largest black population and the better opportunities in Chicago, right?
Right.
And one of the great things about Harlem is that the diversity, you know, that Chicago didn't have. Remember, in Chicago, everybody was separated.
Yes.
But my parents came here, me growing up, you know, I had like white friends, poor white friends,
okay,
poor Italian friends, poor Greek friends, poor Jewish friends, you know what I mean? So we were all there together, and that's what had a lot to do with the development of the culture.
Okay.
Why the culture in Harlem, like, was so much stronger among black people than any place you can go in, not only in America, in the world, because of that diversity that we had, especially with us and the Latinos, because from day one, we was together.
Okay. I was going to ask you, how was it being a kid growing up in Harlem?
Yeah, being a kid growing up was exciting. You know, it's like, for a long time, I thought the whole world was like that. When I got to Chicago, I said, well, where the Puerto Ricans at? Where did Irish at? Right. Everybody was spread out.
Right.
So that's when I began to realize how culture was so powerful in Harlem, because the diversity was developing at the same time.
Okay. In your book, you talk about your relationship with your mother, who went through a lot. You talk about your relationship with your father. Talk to me a little bit about your relationship with your mother. I know she had some
Oh yeah,
struggles, but she was also well-rounded.
She came up loaded down with the Holy Ghost. You know, we went to church. Reverend Hudson was my uncle, Reverend Hudson. We went to a church that was a storefront with a congregation about 23 people. 18 of us was in the same family. It was a hallelujah, stomped down gospel church, you know. So we went to church like growing up 3 times a week.
Okay.
So my mother was a real spiritual person, you know, and the Holy Ghost sustained us. So the problem with my mom had started in the 60s. When you talk about, when I talk about in the book, us getting into the drug game and all of that, that was too much. So my mom began to drink, and that took her apart. My father, on the other hand, you hear me talking about like the church sustained me, but my father was like a pillar of power, you know? He wasn't like into the church like that, but he did. He had already went through his trials and tribulations before he came. He said he used to drink. We never saw him drink. But all my father did was work.
Was he a workaholic?
Workaholic. He had 3 jobs, you know?
Yeah.
And still it wasn't enough. Even though through my mother's problems, you know, he stayed in there. My father hung in there.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You said in the book, I feel like you said you forgave yourself and then you forgave your mother.
My mother didn't need forgiving. I needed to forgive me. You know, I understand now what she went through.
Right.
What she went through is I did that to her. She didn't do it to me.
Right.
You know
well, let's talk about that, because before we started the interview, we were talking about drugs and when drugs in Harlem started. And in the book, you talk about the fact that you and your brothers kind of dabbled in drugs, like selling drugs a little bit, and then you did drugs, you started using drugs, and you actually overcame drugs, which is really, addiction is really hard, you know, to overcome.
I think the big part of that is like never seeing my father smoke or drink or get high. So that laid down on me, and he stuck with me through everything, right? And I was like an arrogant young guy because anybody who got high, I used to like, man, you know, they was like, what the hell is wrong with you? Even when my brother was right older than me, when he started getting high, I used to fight him for getting high.
Right.
And everybody was like shocked when I started getting high.
Right.
So it started from me. I started at like about, let's see, how old was I? 21.
Okay.
And it was over. At 23, it was over. I couldn't understand what happened.
Yeah.
I couldn't understand what happened, right? So when I got arrested, I'm going to tell you when I got arrested. I got arrested June 19th, 1967. I got out September 27th, 1967. And I went right back to high school. I said, man, I'm not going for this. And what I did was, the first thing I wanted to know was, how did that happen? Why did that happen?
Right.
You know, because I didn't accept, like, this is what's supposed to be. So soon as I got home, I went to the Schomburg Library on 135th Street. And I said, I'm going to find out why drugs did this.
You stopped when you were in jail.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because you didn't have a choice, right?
Exactly.
Okay, and so you can't. So once you were in jail, you stopped.
No, guys get high in jail though.
Yeah, I know they do now. Were they?
Yeah,
back
but I
then,
wasn't getting. I wasn't going. I was mad. I was in there, and I knew what got me in there. So yeah.
Okay, let's take a break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Brutally Honest with Jasmine Brand. I'm here with Dapper Dan. I want to talk about this dice hustle that you mastered.
My father was a gambler.
I don't think I missed that in the book. Did you talk about him gambling in the book?
No, I didn't talk about him gambling. But he was a
right.
gambler. We had what was called rent parties.
Oh, yes. I know about
what rent
that.
party
Yes,
is, right?
Yes.
So at rent parties, you play poker. My father cut the game, play poker. That was typical.
Right.
That wasn't unusual. So as a young man, we had what young people don't have today. We had generational hustlers. All right. Let me paint a picture to you what the ghetto was like then. Today the streets specialize in everybody being a drug dealer. But when I was coming up, wasn't no drug dealers like that. You know, in my in the 50s. Wasn't drug dealers like that. That didn't happen until the 60s, right? But in the 50s, you had pimps.
Yeah.
You had bootleggers. You had con men.
Yeah.
And you had professional gamblers, right?
Right.
And so even Dapper Dan, the guy who taught me a lot from, who gave me the name,
yes,
all of them was like masters in all of them.
Okay.
So if you were good in one of them, if you was just good in one of them, and you become a player, not that player today that you hear today, but a player back then was somebody who had skills in a particular hustle profession, like they say. He's yo man, that's a hell of a player, like that, right?
Okay.
But because my generation, me and my friends, we were up under these guys, so they taught us all these street games, right?
Right.
But if you mastered them all, you became a Saul,
right,
which is short for Solomon.
Right.
So people really respect you, right?
Right.
And the guy who I respected the most was a guy named Joe Jackson, because Joe Jackson mastered them all. But more important than that, Joe Jackson mastered himself. So everybody who taught me how to hustle got high. But I had never heard of Joe Jackson yet until later on. And then I figured it out later when I came out back from the joint. I said, what made Joe Jackson different? You know, but Killer, the guy who taught me how to gamble and all the hustle, he got high. So I thought that was the norm. But the ones they bowed down to was Joe Jackson. Joe Jackson didn't smoke, he didn't drink, and he didn't do nothing. So here I am reading Malcolm's speeches, and I'm studying the street, and I'm studying Joe Jackson. I said, Joe Jackson, you know, they called him Gentleman Joe Jackson. He's straight up gangster. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But he didn't smoke, he didn't drink, he didn't do all that. All right. So now I'm looking at two heroes. I got a hero from the street. That's Joe Jackson. And I got a political hero. That's Malcolm. So I'm fusing. Now I'm torn between these two forces. But I'm learning everything about gambling. So I become Dapper Dan as a result of being a real proficient gambler early on. Even today, the whole Alpo generation, that's what they know me for. You know, Gambling Danny. You know, I mean that brother's name. So Gambling Danny. So
right.
There's nothing in my life that I know more about than gambling.
How long did it take for you to become like a Saul, like to be the top of
It started when we started out early. I started out like at 7 or 8. Our first job is like when you have the gambling game on the corner, somebody have to look out for the police, right?
Oh yeah, you would do that.
Yeah, so the older guy was letting me look out for the police. So I stand on the corner, right? And when the police come, I go tell the gambling guy who's running the game, the police there. He said, well, who's in the car? I said, it's a sergeant and a regular police. He said, okay, they get $7, right? The sergeant get $5, the other guy get $2. So that was my job during the day.
Right.
You know, and then eventually at 8 years old, then my other job was like when the policy guys for the numbers, Mr. Booker didn't walk upstairs, so I would wait for Mr. Booker on the stoop, and I would go up in the building and collect all the money. Like people would play on the numbers and come down and give it to Mr. Booker. But gambling was my priority thing. Okay. So now here's two different parts of gambling, right? The science behind the number policy game. You know what I mean? And why you can't never lose. And then while at the same time, the older guys on the corner is teaching me the science behind
the tricks and the
gambling, all the tricks and everything to look out for. And more than anything else, what the key to everything is the law of probability. So I went and got the number one advisor to the government back then was John Scarney. So I went and got John Scarney's books on craps. I went and got John Scarney's books on cards. And I started reading that. So
for a while, craps was solely how you were making your money.
Purely.
What's the most you made in a year?
And gambling? Okay. I had $100,000 in the bank in the 70s. I bought
a Mercedes.
Okay, you know what? You heard of the drug game? Everybody in the street, when you walk in Harlem, they're gonna tell you about this. In 1973, right? I went down to where Frank Lucas, American Gangster?
Yes.
So I went down to that area where he had all the crap players, all the young guys were selling drugs. I went down there in June, and in September I had a brand new Mercedes Benz.
But things got tricky with that one time with was it Frank Lucas's people?
Yeah, they was gonna kill us one time because But they didn't know that, we used Nicky Barnes and all us, we was all family because we all from the real core of Harlem is the neighborhood that I grew up in. Nicky Barnes comes from there, Bumpy Johnson is from there, all around that area there. So Frank Lucas and them came from the South. They was called country boys.
Yes.
Yeah, so they didn't know who he was and who he was with, so they wasn't gonna take that chance.
Right.
Nicky Barnes was the power.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about fashion. How did your love of fashion begin?
Besides the church, nothing transformed me as a young man more than fashion. The reason being, like, when we used to go to the Holy Ghost Church when I was young, I couldn't do nothing about my life, right?
Yeah.
I was growing up, and this is important. I was growing up in a time when black people, when we went to church, it was a philosophy of hereafter. Mm-hmm. It was hereafter theology.
Yes.
So when you go to the church, you get reinvigorated, and your suffering don't bother you because the preacher would always preach about, don't worry about that.
Life after.
When you die, you get your pie in the sky.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So it was hereafter theology.
Yes.
But as I'm growing up, I'm developing now. We got Father Divine, Daddy Grace, Elijah Muhammad, the Prophet Jones. And now it's a different theology. It's like, man, don't wait till you die to get your pie in the sky. So what sustained me as a young man couldn't sustain me once our mentality started to develop, right? Mm-hmm. So now I'm saying, man, hold up, man, I got to get something now,
Right.
And the holes in my shoes is bothering me now. They ain't bothering, because all God's children got shoes, but now this is bothering me, these holes. So I got holes in my shoes, so all of us did. I wasn't no exception.
Yeah.
Growing up in my neighborhood, I come from the poorest neighborhood in Harlem.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't go to the pool. We grew up swimming in the Harlem River, right? So one day I came home and my feet was killing me, man. I said, Mom, my feet is killing me, Before my mother got a chance to even say something, my brother was standing there, next to oldest brother, Kerry, Omar, Moon. And he says to me, he said, no, don't worry, Mom. And he walks me. He said, come on, Danny boy. And he walks me 4 blocks. We turn the corner, and we go on Goodwill. Goodwill was our Macy's. So we go on Goodwill's, right? He said, you see any shoes you like? I said, yeah, I like them. Some like nice, like mahogany looking split toes with tassel. I said, I like them right there. He said, try them on. I tried them on. He said, how do they feel? I said, they feel good. He said, okay, take your shoes, put them in the rack. I pick them up, shoes, go in the rack. He said, okay, let's go. From that moment on, I got bit by the fashion.
So that was the start.
Because when I wore them shoes and went out, the transformative feeling that you got to have shoes, split toe shoes, that the older guys wore like that. I like the way that feel,
Yeah. So, but when did you start really turning into fashion? I'm trying to think, when you went to Africa the second time?
No, it started with the Boosters.
Okay. Tell me about that.
So they had a crew of girls in Harlem, right? In Harlem, in the early Harlem, people didn't steal from each other. All the stealing was downtown. Mm-hmm. And then in the evening, the pimps was downtown, the con players was downtown, everything was downtown. So they had a group of people like the Boosters go downtown, and they steal and they come back uptown. I said, hold up, I can get some money out of this. So when they come uptown, if something costs like $100, right? I would give them 25% of that.
Okay.
Right? So that's $25 of the $100 it costs, and I would sell it for $50.
Okay.
So all the Boosters come uptown. That's what that's So I had a fencing. That's called fencing.
That's called fencing. Okay.
Yeah, a hustle like that.
So you
started
off
with that.
Start off,
and then I would take the stuff around, to the crap games, places like that, and sell it out the back of my car.
Okay.
In addition to gambling, so I was like doing.
So like a combination. And then around this time, did you start doing the credit card stuff? Or
yeah.
Okay, so you had a little credit card hustle that did.
Yeah, that's called the paper game.
The paper game.
Yeah, the paper game, it involves any kind of, anything you can use to get money. And I like that idea. I say, damn, I felt like Robin Hood because I ain't taking from nobody, I ain't hurting nobody, and these banks got all the money. So the paper game was, you know what I mean? I said, man, I love this.
You did well with the paper game.
I did very well with the paper game. So with the paper game, I had to have this international mentality, So what we did was we took other people's credit cards and started nation hopping. So I went all through the Caribbean, all into South America.
What you would do is you would take someone's credit card number, but you would make your own credit card.
That's when I found out really the power of dressing, right? So what I did was I said, man, I'm going to figure out how to make these credit cards, same way I did with fashion. I said, but before fashion hadn't started, I'm going to figure out how to make these credit cards, right? So what I did was I got the power of a suit is amazing. So I put on a suit, white shirt and tie, and I went down to the World Trade Center where they had a company down there that made the machines,
right?
So that I can see what the machines look like that make the credit cards, right?
Yes.
So I go down to there and where they got the machines and they sell them from, so I see what the machine look like. Come uptown, find out what company got them machines, and I send my little man go in there and steal that machine. So from there, now I got to figure out how to get the numbers off and put my numbers on.
Right.
You know? So what I did then was I said, okay. I ain't going to tell you, I don't want to create no criminals. So anyway, so I figured out
they can read the book and figure it out, but go ahead.
So what I did was I figured out how to get the numbers off, right? So now I need numbers to put on. So I get my little man again. We go downtown and we go through all these rich neighborhoods and we go through the garbage. See, back then, when you use your credit card, they had this black carbon.
Yeah, they did like that, yeah.
Yeah, and they threw the carbon in the garbage. So
yeah, okay.
At night, we go downtown and get all the garbage, come up and cipher through the garbage, and I get the numbers. So,
what an entrepreneur!
Yeah.
But you ended up going to jail, out of the country. You went to jail.
Yeah. So we went on the road. We went to 7 or 8 different countries, right?
You did well.
So we in Barbados, and I'm starting to feel. I've been to 4 countries already. I'm starting to feel like something might go wrong. So we leave Barbados and we go to Venezuela, and Venezuelans soldiers like. I said, damn, they rob people. The soldiers rob people here. So I got real nervous in Venezuela. So we left out of Venezuela and we go into Aruba. Now we're in Aruba and we're making a killing in Aruba. And all of a sudden, somehow the paper blows up. What that mean? The paper blows up. Somebody made a mistake out of my crew that I had.
Yes.
But I didn't know they made a mistake. So now I'm on the island and I can't get off the island. And I see police cars shooting up and down the avenue. I said, damn, they looking for me, man. Next thing I know, they got me. So I did 9 months in foreign jail there.
That was in
Aruba?
Aruba?
Yeah. But in the process, I mastered that game. That's when I came back.
You came back, you had money.
Yeah. And then I told everybody, all the guys who I had working for me, I used to make them listen to a record every day in the car.
Know when to hold them, know when to fold them.
Know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, know when to run. You never count your money when you're sitting at the table. There'll be plenty of time for counting when the deal is done. And I didn't spend a dime.
But then
I saved all my money. I told everybody that the government didn't even know how this was taking place.
Right.
Right. I said, when they figured it out, I said, a new law is coming into effect that's going to deal with this. I told them to leave it. And I walked away from it.
Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
Okay.
Welcome back to Brutally Honest with Jasmine Brand. I'm here with Dapper Dan, and I want you to tell me about your second trip to Africa and how that kind of sparked the idea about you in fashion.
Okay, so in my second trip to Africa, I go there because it's the rumble in the jungle. Muhammad Ali is fighting George Foreman. And on that trip, I got the possibility, to stop in 2 other countries. So I said, I'm getting off the plane.
Right.
My last lap of the trip was in Monrovia, Liberia, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Monrovia, Liberia, I said, I'm going back now. I might as well go get me some artifacts. So I go down to the marketplace to get some artifacts, and I see all these artifacts. I said, man, I got to have some of these. So I'm talking to the African about getting some artifacts. He said, man, I like what you got on you. I said, I like what you saw on you. You want to trade? He said, yeah. So I run up into the hotel and bring all my luggage down.
Right.
I trade all my clothes for artifacts, which I got my brownstone in Harlem now,
mm-hmm.
and for him to make me some clothes. And I got a picture of him. You saw him in my book, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
To make me clothes, right? This is where it became. It's amazing how the universe can plant stuff in your head, but it just don't percolate till later. So I said, yeah, I want you to make me clothes with African fabric, but Harlem style.
Right.
So that was the birth of what you hear me say later on is our Blackanized fashion or Africanized fashion. So it came to me then. So when I get back, right, from that trip, I said, man, I got to figure out what I'm going to do. I said, you know what? All the gangsters and hustlers know me. They love the way I dress.
Right.
I said, I'm going to open up a store and cater to them.
Mm-hmm.
So that gave me the incentive to open this cater to them.
Okay.
Now, when I open up the store, what I'm focusing on what we people of color like. Alligators, furs, silks, linens, all. I started out luxury, pure luxury, right? And so everybody's coming to me for that,
Yeah.
And then, but what happened was I'm also buying furs, to sell.
Right.
I was paying $400, selling for $800.
Yeah.
But my
competition, yeah.
AJ Lessons, everybody in Harlem knew about AJ. They were selling the same coats for $1,200.
Right.
They found out I was selling for $800. They go down to the guy I was buying them from and tell them if they sell to me, then
they wasn't
going to buy it.
Right.
They had 6 stores. I only had 1.
Right.
So when I got down, I said, yo, these some cool young dudes. I said, yo, what's happening? They said, man, we got a problem. We can't continue to sell to you because we'll lose this contract. He said, but what I'll do is I can sell to you. We got to take the label out. I didn't buy anything. I just left there upset and came back uptown. The next day, I'm going to lunch with my friend, and I see some Africans on the street selling trinkets, and it hit me. Bam! I give them my card. I say, if you know any Africans that sew, tell them to come see me. From that point on, I say, I'm going to make them same jackets. So I had 1 African, then 2. Before you know it, I had 12 Africans sewing in a day, 11 at night, 365 days a year for 10 years straight.
Tell me about your clientele, because you had...
All gangsters. Middle-class blacks did not come. They walked by the store with their nose up in the air. All gangsters. They're the only ones could afford it anyway.
Yeah.
They had young people who used to come by and say, Dapper, I always wanted to wish I could buy something.
Right.
But all gangsters, because they had the money then. But then there came a shift.
Okay.
This is the beauty of what was happening in the historical factor is that the same time I'm walking away from the street and I'm opening up and getting into fashion, there's a new musical genre that's born.
Right.
Hip hop.
Yes.
Right? And the hip hop artists want to be like the gangsters.
Yes.
So they come in where the gangsters come. Now, how did I get popular nationally? All the gangsters that was buying from me from Harlem started going to all the major events around the country. They would go to the baseball playoff, the basketball playoffs, the football playoff. And everybody wondering where these dudes in Harlem is getting all these Gucci and Dapper Dan and all this fly stuff from.
Right.
And it got so bad that they was going to the Gucci store asking Gucci, well, where's that stuff I sold so-and-so with,
Right.
So it had got to that point. And that's how I got popular under the underground nationally. So I was under the radar for a long time until Mike Tyson had to fight.
So Tyson really got in a fight in your store?
Yes, he got in a fight.
It's in the book. I know, I saw the pictures, but I thought maybe you were joking.
Joking?
Yeah, I seen the picture. So okay,
joking, yeah, man.
So Mike Tyson got in a fight with who in your store?
Mitch Blood Green. That was a historical fight, man.
Well, yeah, but I saw. So you had in your book you have pictures, but I thought maybe they were just joking around. But then I seen him on the floor.
Yeah, you saw him. See, I kept them pictures secret for 23 years.
Can you explain what happened?
Okay, so I used to go out with Mike and stuff like that.
Mike Tyson.
Right? But I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't do all that. So I had to restrict all of that. So when Mike and them went out, I said, go ahead, Mike, I'm going to make this jacket for you, right? He's going to come back and get the jacket. So I'm waiting for him in the store. He's open 24 hours. So I said.
Which is crazy that you were open 24 hours.
24 hours. I had to be because my clientele.
Okay.
They might come 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning with a chick they done picked up in the club and they ready to buy her fur coat. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I wanted to be available.
Right.
So Mike Tyson, all my clients, I know they all, every night on the weekend, every night they coming. And some nights during the week, heavy club night, they coming after the club, So I would be there for them. So Mike said, yeah, Dap, I want you to do this jacket for me. Don't believe the hype. You remember?
Yeah.
So he wanted that jacket. Don't believe the hype. I said, yeah, I got you, Mike. I had a special thing going on with the gangsters and the rappers, right? We had what was called punk out.
Okay.
This is what punk out. You come in the daytime, right? And you want something. They say, Dap, but I want this tonight. I say, well, we could do the punk out. What's the punk out? If I don't have it ready, you get it for free.
Oh.
If I got it ready,
you got to pay extra.
Double.
Okay.
So, I'm on the case now. So I'm waiting for him to come pick up his jacket. So it's 2:30. I'm tired now, man. we done sweated it out. So I leave my nephew there, my night manager, and go, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mike comes right after I left.
Okay.
And he's sitting in the store. So when you see him in the store, you see him telling Mitch Green, yo, shake my hand. So I trained everybody who worked there. When a celebrity come, you always take pictures. Take pictures. That's why you saw the pictures in the book, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're taking the pictures of everything that happened. So Mitch Green got a beef with Mike. And
Who's
Don,
Mitch Green?
Mitch Green was the guy one of the first fighters to fight Mike. In fact, Mitch Green is the one that Mike couldn't knock out.
Okay.
But he beat him, early on.
Yes.
And Mitch Green said, man, you ain't beat me that day. And he felt like Mike Tyson cheated him. He didn't get all the money he is. So he had big beef with him, And Mitch Green used to hang out in the neighborhood. We had these young kids that was running around the neighborhood called the Gremlins, right?
Uh-huh.
And the Gremlins, and Mitch Green used to be up under there where the Gremlins hang out at. And the Gremlins used to tease him, yeah, Mike Tyson whip your ass. Mike Tyson whip your ass. And he's over Dapper Dan's right now. So that's how he ended up coming there.
Okay.
So when you see the pictures in the book, he walks in the store and see Mike said, come on, man, that's over with. Shake my hand. But Mitch Green got belligerent. Mike said, man, I ain't dealing with it. He goes outside. And that's when you see Mike Tyson on top of him, where Mike Tyson hit him with that.
And Mitch is
on he did? Mitch Green ripped the side mirror off Mike Tyson because he had his Rolls Royce out there, and then just got real ugly then. So those are pictures. Y'all got to read the book, man. I ain't giving you all that. Check the book.
That's a hell of a story.
Or wait till me and Mike have our next conversation, So they got into a big fight. The next Monday, that following Monday, now I'm on the ground. I'm
What do you mean
straight.
underground?
Nobody, I can have the underground industry here.
Okay.
I'm doing fashion and the part of the subculture. None but gangsters and new rappers. So all the major brands hadn't even,
They didn't know.
The industry had no clue.
Right.
Now, Mike Tyson had his fight that following Monday Night Football.
Right.
They flying, helicopter talking about the football game.
Mm-hmm.
They flying around and say, they thought it was a joke. They said, yeah, somewhere down there, Dapper Dan had his 24-hour boutique open and Mike Tyson had a fight down. And they laughing.
Right.
My landlord said, man, how did you pay for that much publicity? So right after that, everybody started paying attention. Hip-hop blew up. Tommy Hilfiger came about. Andy Hilfiger's coming to the clubs, giving out jackets. So the culture is growing and expanding.
Right.
Yo, MTV Raps.
Uh-huh.
You see my stuff on every show.
Right.
Right after that, all that publicity, all the brands start paying attention. There's a shift. So the young white kids is now into hip-hop.
Right.
So they're shifting from stuff that they would normally buy from Ralph Lauren. But Ralph is giving them one pony. I'm giving them a whole herd. Plus they got all these young rappers. And then, so we're all coming together. The culture is embracing each other.
Right.
So that's taking place.
Hold that thought. We're gonna be right back. Welcome back to Brutally Honest with Jasmine Brand. I'm here with Dapper Dan, and I wanted you to continue your story.
Okay, so here's the killer, right? Now, Mike Tyson has the fight. All the publicity hit. Now everybody knows about Dapper Dan.
Right.
Because people are saying, the Indians is saying, what the hell is a Dapper Dan? So Mike Tyson is youngest fighter ever. He's knocking them out left and right. So naturally, that's a big publicity, right?
Yeah.
So here I am in Harlem, like reappropriating fashion in a way that's never been done before.
Okay.
Unbeknownst to me, right, I am bringing about what I'm known for, logomania.
Yes.
Okay? Yo, MTV Raps, Ted Demi come and say, yo, Dap, we got a problem. All the stuff that you make, we have to blur it out. I am the reason for the blur that you see on TV today.
Right.
When you see an outfit and it's blurred out.
Yeah.
You'll look at the timetable when before they knew about the power of rap music.
Right.
And then after. And you see that's when they start blurring me out, right?
Okay.
So part one is they blurred me out.
Okay.
Part two, they started raiding me. And they raided me underground.
Okay.
Part three, all the rappers had to have on Dapper Dan. Part three, they start gathering together and using the rappers to promote, right? So all the three PowerPoints
mm-hmm.
in the birth of my brand, the rappers, you understand, logomania,
Right.
visibility, they killed all of that.
Let's talk about logomania. I think you were saying in your book that someone's girlfriend or wife or a woman came in. She had a little Louis Vuitton something.
One of the main gangsters to come to the store all the time and hang out was Jack Jackson. Jack Jackson, you guys can look him up, took over after Nicky Barnes and Frank Lucas.
Okay.
He was affiliated directly with John Gotti's brother, Gene Gotti.
Okay.
So he came in the store one day, right? And he had a Louis Vuitton pouch.
Louis Vuitton pouch. Okay.
Full of $100 bills. And I kept like all fly hustlers always be in the store, fly chicks waiting on the fly hustlers.
Mm-hmm.
They'd be in the store and they all looked at that and they got excited about it, right?
Right. The pouch. The Louis
pouch.
Vuitton pouch. Okay.
With all, because naturally somebody pulling $100 bills out of anything, you're going to be looking at it.
Right.
So they got all fascinated about that, right?
Okay.
I look at how fascinated they are. I say, hold on. If they fascinated over that pouch, that's only $5 worth of vinyl. I say, well, what is it about that? It's the symbols.
Yes. Is that how Logomania was started?
That's how Logomania, I say it's the symbols. So I say, you know what? If I could take those same symbols and make them into garments, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can get more mileage, make more money off them symbols than I can off the furs, the leathers, and everything that I was doing. So the same thing I did with the paper game, I went to work and I taught myself, like Malcolm says, you want to know where it started? Study to see. I taught myself everything about textile printing, and eventually I came up with the method to print on leather, silk.
So they weren't doing, you started the jackets, the leathers, the logos all on the...
Jackets, leathers, cars, everything. Everything I could think of.
Okay. Were you doing shoes?
I started with shoes.
Okay. You started with shoes. Can you tell me about you talked about the 3 touch points. Can you tell me about the raid?
Yeah, so we get cease and desist orders, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the brands, Gucci never raided, right? You know? They sent the cease and desist, but they never raided. Like it was MCM and Fendi. But every time they raid, they take all my machines and anything with their logo on it. You know. After that, they kept taking all my stuff, I kept getting raided. So that's when I went into the underground.
Okay. So so tell me about the underground.
Well, in the underground, because I knew all the gangsters in all the different cities, I shut down and opened up an underground operation.
Okay.
And I would travel from Harlem and hit all the black cities from Harlem to Chicago and come back and then hit all the black cities from Harlem to Atlanta. And that's how I've sustained myself for like the 29, 30 years underground. I refused to give up.
So you were kind of like, you had like a traveling store,
But I would be in Harlem too. I had my team here and I'll do the traveling because people knew me. They wanted to see me. They wanted to take pictures with me. They wanted the feel of them.
Right.
Yeah.
So you did that for a while.
30 years.
Right. Did you miss having a brick and mortar? Or you preferred doing the underground thing?
I love traveling because as soon as I hit the highway, I felt good. Something about traveling makes you feel good. I was away from, because all my clients, every day I was hearing gangster stories, murder and mayhem stories every day.
Right.
And I'm hearing them kind of stories, but at the same time, I'm doing spiritual studies.
Right.
So that was like, I was being ripped apart. And before all these adventures started, what sustained me was my spirituality. What gave me the idea of logomania was my journey to understand spirituality, and it's things associated with spirituality, which is religion,
Right.
And the reason why I understood the power of logos is because you cannot study religion without studying symbols.
Right.
And so the more I studied religion, everything went back to a symbol, to the cross, to the Star of David. Everything came from out of there. And what I noticed was that 95% of the people in the world submit to some kind of symbol. So I already knew that before I started the logo thing.
Okay.
Because I was totally involved.
Okay. I think you said that both Tom Ford and Marc Jacobs appropriated your style. Did you say that?
Tom Ford.
And Marc Jacobs?
And Marc Jacobs. Yeah.
Do you take that as a compliment or more like a...
I don't take it. I let the public take it. If I taint it if I keep giving my opinion. And especially when you look at the contribution that Gucci is making now, today.
Right.
I wish we can get behind every brand and get them to do for the culture what Gucci has done.
Right.
That's a story yet to be told. We're breaking new ground in fashion that a lot of people are not aware of because they're outside of the industry.
Right.
But we really need more activists, especially to study how fashion works, so they know when it's good, something good is happening or something bad is happening.
In terms of your perspective, what has Gucci done for the culture?
Well, change makers programs. They're putting money into programs for inclusivity and diversity.
And you're on the board, right?
Yes, I'm on the board. There's a number of us on the board. But it's important that more than ever. And here's something that I haven't spoke about before in any documentaries and any discussions, but what's happening with Kanye now and what happens with Virgil now is a super lesson.
Okay.
You can learn a whole lot about how the industry works, and that's as much as I'll say at this point. It's way more complicated than people understand. I'm hoping that things work out great for Kanye so he can continue to make the contribution and open up doors for us in fashion. I consider it a tragedy that we lost Virgil and this is the big thing, Kanye and Virgil have a different side of the story from me.
Okay.
Everybody needs to understand that I came up a black staircase. What that means is I never had any interaction until I got to the top, to the roof of the fashion industry.
Okay.
But Virgil and Kanye, they started and came up a white staircase, and they know all the interactions, everything you see is going on. I'm learning as much from watching how this unfolds with him than I did with my journey. So my journey didn't entail none of that.
Okay.
They came after me later on where I never experienced that. So they experienced it from the ground up, and they know that dynamic.
Okay.
I came up from the culture itself, that black staircase, where I can go up and down them steps. You can't go up and down them steps. When you make a mistake over there, that's a different story. You understand? And that's how it's going to play out. There's something really big happening now, and I won't say it more. It's like the structure, Kanye, and the culture. Those are the three factors that's going to determine what happens next.
Let's take a break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Brutally Honest with Jasmine Brand. I'm here with Dapper Dan. I want to ask you, in terms of Black and fashion, where do we go from here?
There's an interaction between fashion, the street, culture, all of that is bundled into one package, right? So whatever happens over here in culture happens over there. It's just like, I guess what the rappers say, keeping it real is to talk about everything and how it affects each other, right? So hip hop gave birth to fashion, because it was the other side of the coin. So, but where's hip hop going today? All right.
Right.
So you got to see where. So I say, well, at one point, it went after it left New York and went to L.A. And we gave birth to gangster rap. Then it went to another location and gave birth to trap music. Now it's giving birth to drill music. Now, are we elevating or are we imploding?
Okay.
And that's what happens to the streets. The streets grab something, develop it, it spreads, and if it's not right, it implodes, like the drug game. See all the money in Harlem spread. and then all of a sudden the destructive element that it was grounded on collapses.
Right.
You know what I mean? We just lost a major rapper. That's another tragedy. We have to look at what the culture is doing. If the culture is destroying us, then it's going in the wrong direction.
Right.
So we just have to look at it. You have to find a way. We have to find a way to keep it real, right?
Right.
You know, to tell a story without the story destroying us.
Right. I'll say this. When I woke up and I heard the news about Takeoff being shot, and it has an association with the dice, with the gambling, I immediately thought about you because I was interviewing you today and I had read the book and you had talked about just that environment, how dangerous it is.
It's not necessarily associated with the dice game. It's associated with the nature of the culture at the time. It could happen at any place.
It could have, yes.
It could happen at a state fair.
Yes, you're right.
At a concert.
Yes.
It could happen under any circumstances. It's the breeding of the mentality associated with the mindset that would lead to that. When it's bred to a certain point, it will end up in imploding and destroying who.
Okay. Before I let you leave, I ask every guest what I call general life questions. They have nothing to do with fashion, nothing to do about your particular life, but I want to get your take on these things, okay? What's the best thing that's happened to you this year?
This year?
Yes, this year.
Black women. Every time I turn around, Black women are there to support me. Ever since I came out of the underground, like I went to the Essence Fest, I thank them. Black woman is Black Twitter. You guys are the support that keeps me afloat.
We buy.
I might drown if it wasn't for y'all.
Right.
So the best thing that happened to me and continue to happen to me is the support I'm getting from Black women.
What's one piece of clothing or accessory that you would never wear?
A thong.
That's perfect. What trend in fashion would you like to see in?
I'd like to see us destigmatize the hoodie, which is what I'm trying to do. You see me wear a hoodie, but you see me wear with a silk scarf or ascot or something like that, and it's a purpose. Ever since Trayvon Martin and this whole idea of the hoodie being a negative force or a negative look, that's why I jumped on the opportunity with the Gap to take the hoodie and destigmatize it. So when people of color put that hoodie on, they could be a goodie in a hoodie.
Goodie in a hoodie. I love it. What keeps you up at night?
Spiritual thoughts. My staff will tell you 4 a.m., that's my spiritual hour. Okay. I'm always sending them messages 4 a.m. and my most creative hours are around 4 a.m. in the morning.
What time you go to bed?
It depends on how much work I do.
Okay.
Even if I go, it has to be that hour, man, and it interrupts nothing. Yeah.
Okay. What's one advice you wish you could give up?
If you want to master your craft, the first thing you should do is master yourself.
Okay. Mm-hmm. You said that you would have loved to style Michael Jackson and Biggie. Is there anyone else you would like to style for?
It would have to be somebody who's a big influence. It was like that I would get excited about. Mm-hmm. Kendrick Lamar. Because let me tell you why Kendrick Lamar.
Okay.
Because you see me with him recently. Everybody who I style, and you'll hear me say, my mantra is, I do not dictate fashion. I translate culture. And what Kendrick Lamar represents today, I would like to sit down to him and talk to him about his lyrics and what he's saying, his message, and what his life is about, and then dress him based on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the best compliment you've ever received?
That I'm humble.
Okay. What's your biggest professional regret?
Isn't that something? I don't have any professional regrets. You know why?
Why?
Because everything led to where I am today. And people ask me all the time, what would you change? I wouldn't change nothing. I have no regrets. Everything that has happened to me is steps, to the platform where I am today. So I never look at it like that.
Okay. What's one thing you always wanted to try, but you've been too scared to?
To me, fear is a result of not knowing something, or not understanding something. I can't think of anything that I don't understand.
Okay.
So
okay.
I don't fall in that category.
What do you want your legacy to be?
it's like what I tell my children. I say, I want my obligation is not to change people, forcibly change people, but just to tell my story.
Okay.
I want my legacy to be that I kept it real, that I told everything, you know, and like, I don't want to die with the responsibility of not having told everything that I've known.
Okay.
You know, and that's the biggest thing for me, just to tell the whole story, so that people can like, and that's a big part of why I do all these speaking engagements. Is like, young people don't have any more Dapper Dans,
right,
or any people like me that they can say they see him on the subway, they see him on the street, they see him on the corner, they see me everywhere,
right,
and they know what my accomplishments are. But there's an obligation that go with that. I have to tell this story. You know, and I want them to know the story, because when they make that mistake, I want them to know that, look, I told you.
Right.
That's all.
Okay. If you could pick one song as the soundtrack to your life.
John Coltrane, My Favorite Things.
Okay.
You know, when you look at the just what he did with that there, and then what he did with his life, you know, that's me.
Okay. Last question. If you could ask God a question and he would answer you loud and clear, what would you ask God?
What's next?
That's perfect. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I could talk to you for hours and hours. I appreciate you sharing all your stories. So I want to thank Dapper Dan for this amazing interview, this amazing conversation. And make sure you tune in to Brutally Honest with Jasmine Brand every Monday night at 9 p.m. on FOXSOUL.